Hi everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids. You probably expected this guy to be coming. Well, here it is, Mithrala Lifebane. Probably a lot of you, when you get her, she is going to become your new favorite champion. I would not be surprised. She is here. We get her from Hydra, and she's absolutely incredible. Void Legendary, support champion. Once you are able to start getting fragments for Mithrala from Hydra, once you can start getting some Hydra chests, I'll tell you this up front, it wants to be your number one priority, right? You want to start getting this champion as quickly as you can. What does she do that is so good? Then I'll show you her gear, and there's actually a few different ways to build her. I have her in a generalist build, but I'll tell you a couple of the specialist builds as well. So her A1, Libation of Pain, attacks 2 times at random. Now, I actually do believe, from all my testing, when you click on a target, when you tell her to target a particular target, the first hit will actually always hit the person that you click on. It's the second hit that is random. So that's actually quite nice. You can target this quite a bit. Each hit has a 80 bucks to 100% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns, and the damage scales based off of defense. This A1 is actually pretty weak for Arena, so that's a bit of a downside, and she's an amazing Arena champion. This move's not so good there, though. But for PvE content, this is actually fantastic. So you go up against something like the Dragon. When you're against Hydra, she's amazing against Hydra. You can, for example, target the Head of Decay. Head of Decay is actually vulnerable to poison. He can be poisoned, so she can actually start stacking some poisons up, and it can contribute quite a lot of damage. Actually, quite nice. So yeah, this is a good ability for PvE, pretty weak for PvP. So there we go. That's her A1, probably the weakest part of her kit overall, and it's actually pretty good. Her A2 then, Sigil of Toxic Glory. She is the best Hex champion in the game. 3 turn cooldown when it's booked. She only needs, by the way, 8 books total, so she's an easy champion to book, and obviously you will book her. She should be your top priority to book, pretty much, when you get her, because she's so good. This is an AoE attack based off of defense. It puts a Hex debuff for 2 turns, and it also puts increased defense and increased attack on all allies for 2 turns as well. So this is obviously amazing. The Hex debuff in itself, this can enable Hex-based damage dealers. I will show you some of that today. It is obviously fantastic for Hydra, where the Hex debuff enables you to directly target the Head of Mischief. He's no longer able to redirect your abilities, so that is super, super good. And then just getting increased defense and increased attack together. Great move, just by default. Really good move. 2 very good buffs. Basically enables both types of damage dealers. If you've defense-based damage dealers, attack-based damage dealers, doesn't matter. She enables them to hit harder. Also helps you to stay alive as well. Brilliant move for Arena, of course. There's actually not that many very good increased defense champions in like top-level Arena. Sifi would be the main one. So Mithrala actually comes in, and she's probably like the other contender, though ironically the 2 of them together is probably the best combo. But yeah, really potent increased defense champion for Arena there too. And Hex with her passive, very strong for PvP, not so good for PvE, but then again the Hex in itself actually quite useful for PvE with Hex champions and with the Hydra. Now her A3, also an amazing move. Brimming Cyclics, 3 turn cooldown when booked, removes all debuffs from all allies, places 25% strengthen buff and a shield buff equal to 30% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns. She has a baseline of 20,000 base HP, so her HP is going to be very high. It's going to be a really good shield. I've already talked about and done a guide on Sigmund and talked about how much I like Sigmund. Sigmund has Shield of the Realm, 3 turn cooldown, same as her. Shield equal to 30% of his max HP and a strengthen buff. I talked about how good and how useful this move is. Mithrala has this exact move with a full team cleanse as well. So this move is absolutely incredible. Again, so potent in Hydra, in Arena, basically in any of the hardest content. Doom Tower, fantastic. Helping your team stay alive hugely. And yeah, when you put it together, her kit, she brings you like the three of the biggest defensive buffs in the game. Strengthen, shield, massive shield, and also increased defense. So she does a ton to keep your team alive. One of the actual best supporting champions in the game, just to mitigate incoming damage and keeping you alive. And yeah, just the shields absorbing it, strengthen, increased defense, lowering that damage. Really effective. It makes a huge difference. Then her passive is super cool. Currently the only source of petrification in the game. Whenever this champion is attacked by an enemy under Hex, 50% chance to apply Petrification on the attacker for 1 turn. What does Petrification do? Well, Petrification, it removes all their buffs, so it's a buff strip. It also blocks any buffs from going on to that target, so it's also a block buffs, effectively. It also makes them miss their turn. They don't get any cooldowns back on their turn, so it's like a stun, right? Stun does the same thing, stops their cooldowns ticking down at all, and they miss their turn. But then it has a sort of freeze effect where they do take less damage. They take, I believe it's 60% less damage from regular hits, so it does make the enemy quite a bit tankier. That's the only downside, albeit they do take increased damage from bombs, which is a nice thing. Bombs are still pretty rare. There's not a ton of champions that can do bombs, so it's hard to find some combos there. But yeah, this is just an amazing debuff. So powerful in the arena. It's really good. You know, you have hexes on the enemy team. They try to attack you in arena and they start getting petrified. They start missing their turns. Their buffs get stripped off. They can't buff up and you can just start rolling them over. Really cool. Whenever an ally is attacked by an enemy under hex, there's a 30% chance to put petrification on the attacker for 1 turn. And then even better, perhaps, should probably be another passive just to itself, also increases this champion's resistance equal to the amount of accuracy this champion has. So if you give her 500 accuracy, she gets a bonus 500 resistance as well. And what this means is that this champion is extremely hard to debuff, right? She's going to have extremely high resistance, which is not only obviously amazing for PvP, it's also amazing for PvE. We look at that Hydra, that Head of Mischief. Not only is she helping you deal with Head of Mischief by placing Hex, but if Head of Mischief ever tries to steal buffs off of her, guess what? I actually think it's hilarious that even if Head of Mischief somehow gets increased accuracy, I think even with increased accuracy, for most players, he's still not going to be able to steal buffs off of Mithrala very often because the resistance is simply going to be too high due to this passive, which is kind of hilarious. Brings you an 80 accuracy in all battles aura as well, which is a fantastic aura. So she's kind of got it all. She kind of has it all. Now, let's talk about how to build her. So as you can see, I actually haven't fully rolled up her weapon yet. That would just give us, obviously the attack does nothing, but the stats would help. Haven't been able to fully glyph her out, but that's okay. And you can see I do have an accuracy banner. This would actually matter a bit because we roll this fully up. She get an extra 34 accuracy and therefore an extra 34 to her resistance as well. I haven't glyphed her speed on a lot of these pieces, or it's very lowly glyphed, simply because I want her working with Prince Kymar, and she's actually, the gear I put on her, and her base speed of 109 has actually made her potentially too quick to work with Kymar. So that's just something you have to consider for yourself and your own setup. But if I wasn't trying to speed tune her with Kymar, I could in theory crank her speed even higher, or I could try to get Kymar's speed higher, and then I could crank her higher as well. What have I done though? I've put her in 3 perception sets. What do they give you? 5% speed per set and 40 accuracy per 2 of the set as well. So yeah, really good. It gives her exactly the stats that she wants. Another good option, we'll talk about her overall stats. If you are mainly building her for PvP, the best options might be instead to go for immunity, which gives you immunity for 2 turns, or obviously the upgrades to immunity. So we'd be looking at Untouchable, which is immunity plus 40 resistance as well, or potentially even Stone Skin, which effectively gives you immunity, a bunch of other stats as well, but does give you a weakness to bombs. I don't think that's a huge issue though. So Stone Skin would probably be the best set on her for PvP. The only issue I had with those sets is that I just don't have enough good pieces in those sets to make her really good. Whereas Perception, you're farming the heck out of Perception through your faction wars, right? So you're going to have a lot of really good Perception pieces. And I was just able to get better stats on her out of Perception than those sets. Why would you put her in Stone Skin or Immunity and so on if she's got so much resistance anyway? Well, the reason being, very simply, that to protect her from sets themselves. So if we go to, let's say, a stun set as a classic example, 18% chance to play stun debuff. This is not actually, this debuff completely ignores accuracy and resistance. It doesn't have anything to do with it. You can have a champion with 0 accuracy, and when they hit an enemy champion with like 1,000 resistance, it's still an 18% chance. It doesn't get affected. So the reason you put her in immunity or whatever is to protect her from stun, taunting, freeze, those sorts of sets that can mess her up. So especially if you want to use her as a hegemon counter, right? If you want to use her to counter Hegemon, which she's very, very good at, you might want to put her in this. Like, so Hegemon, he goes first. He always goes first each round, and then he does potentially this AoE attack that can put block active skills. Mithrala can, not be affected by that, and then she can come in and do her burning cyclics, give everyone a shield, give them strengthen, and remove that block active skills debuff. And she's going to be super fast, so she'll get in before, the rest of your team would be going, most likely. So really good for that. If he's in a stun set or a taunting set or something like that, though, he can still stun or taunt her if she doesn't have immunity, even if she has more resistance. So that is the reason to potentially build her like that. I didn't decide to do it, but you could. Again, for her accessories, I think reaction is probably the way to go because you will be using her for PvP. So if you got reaction pieces, you are good. You could put her in revenge. Counterattack accessories is fine as well. I think it's not too important, though. I'd be going for reaction and then, yeah, pretty much whatever you have. And for the total stats I've shot for, I have her up to 60,000 max HP, 2,700-ish defense, 270 speed. We've got a little bit of crit rate in there, 140-ish resistance, and 530 accuracy. So we put this stuff together, and for me, she's got about 668 accuracy. She's going to be, resistance. She's going to be up at 700 resistance when I fully roll this up, probably a bit higher when I fully glyph her properly as well. So yeah, across the board, good stats, but by the time you get her, you're going to have good gear. So I think the main things to aim for is definitely cranking her accuracy high, cranking her speed up high as well, and then boosting up her base stats. Obviously, defense is going to make her tankier. She gives increased defense, of course, as well. Her damage is based off defense. That's always nice. And max HP is more important, though. So yeah, speed, accuracy, HP, probably the three top ones. Don't avoid resistance, though, guys. By the way, if you got gear with resistance, you don't need to avoid it. People go, why would I build resistance on her if she gets accuracy into resistance? That is certainly true. You'd rather have accuracy. But if you have some resistance on your pieces, it's totally fine, right? She still wants resistance. She turns her accuracy into resistance, but she adds her resistance, obviously, onto that as well. So resistance does no harm. In fact, it's really good. And part of what makes her so good is that double dip through the Great Hall, Faction Guardians if you have them, Empowerment if you have them, that just make her resistance sky high. So yeah. You can see the individual pieces of gear going for speed and accuracy. That's going to up her HP when I put a glyph on that as well. Speed, accuracy, bit of defense on that. Speed. This isn't a great piece, but it's got speed and accuracy. 3 rolls of speed here. Only 5-star piece, though. HP percentage gloves. Accuracy chest, actually, with speed, defense percent on it. Bit of crit rate. And then speed boots. Again, not the best. But yeah, so you might have better gear for sure. I have her in probably a HP ring. Yeah, I've got her in a HP ring. HP or defense ring, doesn't matter, whichever one with good base stats. This is my best reaction ring, so that's what she's got. Again, HP or defense necklace is going to be totally fine. Depends on whichever one is your best one. And then for her banner, accuracy with speed, HP percentage is good as well. More speed, the better, pretty much. But there you go. That is how I have her built out. Let's go see her in some action. So I think the first place I want to show her, just to explore her defensive potential, just to show you, let's just throw her into Faction Wars 21. We're going to put in Vizix, gives us a defense aura, and obviously you'll have Vizix by the time you get Mithrala. She's a login reward. Then a couple of Cold Hearts, one of them level 50, and then a level 60 Painkeeper. And let's see how it goes. Painkeeper will give us some healing, but the point of this is just to go through and let's explore how Mithrala will do in terms of keeping us alive, right? Bit of healing from Painkeeper, but my Painkeeper is built for an unkillable clan boss team. She's quite squishy. The Cold Hearts are obviously pretty squishy. Vizix is tanky enough. But yeah, how will we do? What can Mithrala do? This first wave isn't going to be so bad, but the second wave is where things get nasty. There we can see our first petrification going off as our team was attacked and she has petrified the enemy. Again, for this PvE content, it can be kind of bad in the sense that it will slow you down because they take reduced damage, but it also makes things a lot safer. So for speed running, it can be a downside. It definitely can be a downside. It's something that we will be watching out for. It can slow down your speed runs, but for progress, for doing really difficult content like Doom Tower waves, where you don't really care about killing them fast. You just want to be able to beat them at all. It's absolutely incredible. So here we go. Again, you can see with just the speed that she has, she is flying through this. In fact, she's going to take so many turns on this wave because the Valkyrie passives are going to be pushing back our other champions, right? Whenever you get a buff, Valkyrie reduces your turn meter. But you're going to see that Mithrala is just going to resist everything. So she's not going to get her stuff pushed back. Look at these Valkyries. These poor Valkyries are just getting chain petrified. Vizix as well, locking them down. There's another petrification gone out. And a wave that would, whenever you're progressing through this, I actually found Dark Elves, just due to my my particular champion pulls. For me, Dark Elves is one of the last factions I actually beat. I think that's kind of unusual. A lot of people seem to beat it for, look at this, these poor Valkyries, look at this. They're trying desperately to get their shields up, to get counterattack up. And Mithrala is just like, no, petrify you, strip your buffs. I believe also the Valkyries, that when she does petrify them off this, whatever the Valkyrie shield hit, the counterattack hit that she does, it actually interrupts her putting the buffs on the others as well, which is amazing. But look at that. We just sailed through. We just sailed through this. This has been absolutely no problem. We do not have a tanky team. Well, I guess Vizix is somewhat tanky. But like, we got 3 very squishy champions here, and we're just going to start blitzing through. Mithrala, again, you can see that A1 also putting up some poisons is quite nice. Might lose someone here, it's possible. We shall see, but that increased defense helping. And here comes Mithrala, rips off those debuffs, puts on the strengthen, puts on the shield, and we are pretty much, we're back in the driver's seat. We're pretty much good to go once again. And just that small bit of healing from Painkeeper is, you know, it's keeping us alive. Really nice, guys. So I'm going to pause this and I'll come back when we've beaten this boss. But as you can see, it's absolutely smooth sailing. No threat at all with Mithrala in there. And I've put in obtainable champions so you can compare your runs yourself without her and then see them with her and just go like, wow, that's how much of an impact she's having. Alright, so there we go. Finished Faction War Stage 21. Not the fastest run, obviously, but, you know, 3 minutes 50. It's a good solid time with these particular champions, and we are smashing through. Like, level 50 Cold Heart, we 3-starred this, right? Level 50 Cold Heart. No worries, no stress, absolutely no problem. Mithrala has completely locked it down. As you can see, her damage output's actually quite solid as well. She outdamaged that level 50 Cold Heart. Level 60 Cold Heart did beat her with those Heart Seekers on the boss. If you compare her to Vizix as well, like Vizix is a very solid defense-based damage dealer. You can check out my Vizix guide. But yeah, Vizix obviously outdamages her in this sense, but she's still putting out good damage too. So that is her against that boss. That's her for, you know, sort of keeping a team alive. Let's look at her in some speed running situations then. So let's go into this one. Now, this stuff is going to change later in the week. Why? Because we now know, if you saw my video earlier, that we're getting an update to the team AI, that you're going to be able to customize your AI to work on particular rounds. So in particular with this team, this is like an end game style speed running team. So a seer team, let's see, where's my seer team? This would be my seer team, would come in here, and they do a similar thing with Kymar and Lydia and all of that. Brogni is in there for buffs, all that sort of stuff, yeah? So this is end game. This is not champions you're going to have early game, in case you're construing it to mean that you somehow might. But Thea is actually a guaranteed champion. First one from Doom Tower Hard. Mithrala, obviously guaranteed from Hydra. Lydia guaranteed from Faction Wars. Kymar you can replace with Renegade, that would work. And Ethos is really any sort of damage dealer. Let's dive in and let's see how it's supposed to work. So where this would get smoother for this run is that Thea can weak hit this guy over here, so I'm gonna have to take it off auto if she does. But Mithrala puts out the Hex, AoE, increases attack. Actually, it doesn't matter, we did weak hit, but I put in Ethos. So you can see for this sort of level of dungeon, actually, that you don't really need the Hex damage dealer. Like, Thea hits so hard, but you don't actually need that because you can clear out the waves pretty easily anyway. But yeah, the idea is that Mithrala comes in, she applies the Hex, increases attack on our group. Then we've decreased defense and weaken from Lydia or anyone else who can do decreased defense and weaken. And then Thea or whoever will come in and blow them up. So you could potentially make this work without a second damage dealer. I have Ethos in here to help kill the boss and to help soften off the waves, particularly because, again, Thea can weak hit. Now, when we get later in this week, the very week of recording, and we can actually tell someone, our Kymar, or we can tell our Renegade, do not reset cooldowns like he just did. Do not reset those cooldowns until we get to wave 2, then it won't matter if we weak hit an enemy in wave 1. If we're running Thea, who's obviously your guaranteed Hex nuker, or if you're running Ruel, who is, was a fusion Hex nuker, or any Hex nukers they add in the future, you could have them just absolutely blow up that wave, one-shot the wave maybe, and yeah, if the green guy survives because of affinity, no problem. They'll just slowly kill him with their A1s, get onto wave 2, then Kymar resets and we're good to go. Issue at this team, if I switch it out right now without that AI ability that I don't have quite yet, it would kind of flop the run. It would slow it down a good bit. But as you can see, 57 seconds for a keep. This will work on basically every single keep. You'd have to switch her out for green affinity keep, obviously, for Ruel or someone else. But yeah, this absolutely smashes through. Right, attack aura from her. Nice. Yeah, it's a nice quick run. Smashes on in. Does the job. Very nice. So yeah, it's obviously not going to be the fastest run. There's faster runs possible, but it's a good solid speed run. You're not going to be too unhappy with that. Let's go into Dragon then. Let's check her out in Dragon's Lair. Let's go into stage 25. And what I'm going to do here, I'm actually going to bring in Ruel. Again, you could bring in anyone. In fact, we could even bring in the same team. When we bring in the same team, let's bring in the same team just to show it. Ethos just subbing in as a general void nuker. There's obviously better ones you could bring in. Yada yada. Let's go into this, and again we're going to see the same thing, which is Mithrala is in there to give us that increased attack. She places that Hex AoE, Lydia decreased defense and weaken, and then we nuke. Boom. So we're slightly, you can see right there, this is where that AI stuff matters. AI stuff matters here because we could turn off her A3 in the AI, all that sort of stuff, because he lived at like 1 HP. Maybe that's why I was running with Ruel. And then we come in and Kymar would reset, or Renegade would reset, whoever it is. But we could turn off those other abilities. On wave 2, doesn't really matter. Well, actually, Thea one-shots them anyway. This is where these dungeons, this is where Hex becomes more important. Why is it more important here? Well, as you saw in the potion keeps, the enemies were so squishy, didn't really matter. Now, when we come to dungeons, like level 25 dungeons, the enemies are actually very, very, very tanky. They're very tanky. And your regular nukers are not going to be able to kill them. You could see how much damage Ethos did compared to Thea. The Hex nukers, so Ruel and Thea, they hit ridiculously hard. The only thing that hits harder than them, when they have Hex out and they're buffed up and everything, only thing that hits harder is a Baron, who does his Sky Piercer, which is completely unreliable. It doesn't work. And obviously then, I guess I should be more clear and say Seer as well with the proper buff setup, because its enemy max HP damage also does more. So right now, Seer does more. Poison Explosion teams are going to be faster. What is the purpose of this team then? If Seer is probably a bit easier to build and set up, Void Epic. Seer is obviously completely overpowered, no doubt about that. Poison Explosion is a bit better, but that's harder to get. The champions are hard to get. The point of this is that subbing out Kymar for Renegade and putting in any real other nuker, you can actually clear through a dungeon like Dragon pretty damn quickly. Not the fastest time in the world, but actually pretty damn quick. You can blast through it and get it done with guaranteed champion, guaranteed champion, guaranteed champion for a nice solid base of endgame farming, which is pretty great actually. It's pretty solid. It's pretty good. And Renegade can easily sub in here. If it was a Seer team, Renegade can't really sub in, right? Because Renegade can't fully reduce Karma Burn, that's Seer's nuke. Kymar is kind of needed more for those speedruns because he does fully reduce it. Thing with this is, Mithrala and Thea, their cooldowns are so short that a Renegade can actually fully reduce them. Lydia as well, because they have 3-turn cooldowns. Well, Thea is 4 turns, but one of hers gives her an extra move, gives her an extra turn, so it works just the same. So that is the nice thing about this sort of team. Yeah, it's a nice thing about it. It's pretty cool. I certainly think that this is more of a future thing for like really hardcore endgame stuff, which is if we go like up to stage 30, which will happen probably at some point, or maybe like hard or nightmare difficulty dungeons or something, if they add on another difficulty of dungeons and they stop Seer from working, they say, okay, you know the way the bosses have like 10% max HP in a single hit, they have that max HP protection. If they add a version of that onto the waves, any kind of version, even if it's like, you know, a Rotos passive, you can only do half of their health in a max HP hit. Suddenly Seer falls to the wayside, and champions like Thea and Ruel, who just hit so damn hard, enabled by Mithrala, will suddenly become really good. And like I said, you put in Ruel here, if they ever add a Void nuker that has Hex, you add them in, And this becomes an absolutely monstrous team, which is really cool. Really, really cool. Now, in terms of other dungeons, I will mention, obviously you can smash through all the potion keeps quickly with this. You can smash through dragons quickly with this. Switch out Thea, obviously, on the green floors for someone else. Spider, no. Maybe for Fire Knight it could work. I'm going to touch on this stuff more when I can control the AI more. For Ice Golem's Peak, this is an interesting one. Now, the issue that you run into, I have tried to make this work. The issue that you run into on Ice Golem is that there are passive abilities on the waves that make it not work. That Seer can bypass, but you can't with these guys. So to make Ice Golems work, I tried to make it work, and it doesn't really. You'd have to switch it up. You'd have to put in like an Arbiter or something like that, and you'd have to use that advanced AI. So yeah, I was kind of considering postponing this video because of it, but I'll simply do another video showing you more Hex teams when we can control the AI. But right now, this team doesn't quite work. She's still going to be really good, but just not going to be super, super fast, if you get me. But doing Ice Golem, what's your trouble? Oftentimes it's going to be staying alive. What does she do? She gives you increased defense, which is awesome, but she also gives you strengthen. She gives you shields, which is going to help you survive his hits if he hits you when his ads are still up, right? Because when the ads are up, he ignores defense. So you're relying on just having tons of max HP to live. Well, she comes in and she goes, cool, I've removed any debuffs the ads have put on us. We have a shield, we have strengthen, giving us a lot more effective HP, ignoring defense. And that will help us survive. So I think she is very good for that. I won't show it to you. Now, the other big PvE, actually 2 more big PvE areas. This is going to be a long guide. Doom Tower is certainly one of them. So if we go to, I don't know, a randomly hard floor. I should have tested this before the video. Oh, well. This is a random floor. So how does she do? Basically, I think the interesting thing here, I'm going to show you a team sort of like this. Again, because of weak hits, this is actually going to change quite a bit, and I'm going to revisit it when we can actually tell our Renegades and Kymars to hold their reset to wave 2. I actually think we throw her in with just a bunch of guaranteed champions, like Arbiter, Lydia. These are literally 5 guaranteed champions. And I think this is going to actually smash through a lot of these floors. So what's the difference here? We have Still of the Drakes for some AoE CC. I actually think mine is a bit under-geared because I had to steal some of her gear, which is a slight oops. So here we go. Look at this. We have block active skills on everyone. We've got stun on Syl. This looks pretty rough. We're getting smacked around. Boom. All those debuffs removed. Fantastic. Strengthen, a shield, protecting us, helping us stay alive. And Syl can come in. You can see there's already a Petrify out on the enemy Astralon as well. Petrify on him too. And you can see what Mithrala is doing. She's just enabling us to stay safe. She really makes you so safe and so tanky. Gives so much protection going through these waves. It's absolutely fantastic. And then, again, for this, because they have so much HP, we're bringing in Thea, who can do Hex Reaper, nuke them down. All that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's obviously an end game team. You can check out my Doom Tower guide for an early game team if you like. Also explore the Seer team comp for that as well. That's for Doom Tower hard. But I mean, by the time you get Mithrala, you're gonna be pretty late game anyway. So as you can see, this sort of team is gonna absolutely smash through nearly all of the floors. In fact, I think I do remember one of the floors that is harder. I'm not sure if this will work 100% of the time, but it is capable of beating it. I beat it without her. Let me pause it, find the floor, because I don't remember exactly which one. Okay, so I found the hardest floor, and I can confirm that this team does work. There we go, actually, 60 turns versus 59. And you can see sort of the damage breakdown. So I'm not going to do the full run through. It's like 3 minutes long. But this is floor 114 of Doom Tower Rotation 3 Hard, where you're going up against multiple Sifi waves. And this is the team I actually put together. I found that this team works really well. I was also trying Archbishop Pinthroy in there as well. I think he would work well. My problem was that because he's not fully booked, he has still I think he still has a 4 or 5 turn cooldown on his block buffs and block healing, so it wasn't quite working. But basically we go in and this Hex team absolutely smashes through this awful, like look at this awful wave. It's double Sifi, double Rotos. It's horrible, but like Arbiter boosts our turn meter. We put Hex on everything. Actually got 1 resist. That could be bad. Just unlucky. Always a 3% chance to be resisted. Then actually Lanicus is really good with someone like Thea. She gives us 30% turn meter and does an ally attack. Gives us a little bit of extra damage. And then Thea with Hex Reaper. Boom. blows up most of them. We do have one Siphi survive this time because we're missing one hex. Maybe didn't roll Helm Smasher, but that's okay. Doesn't really matter. Actually, that's interesting. She starts with that. We're going to put our shields on, and we'll just start smacking her and just try kill her off pretty much as quickly as we can. Just hit her with that. That's fine. We can try to strip off their stuff. Doesn't hugely matter. Then she goes invisible, and we've almost got her down. But yeah, so that was a little bit worse, a little bit slower, unfortunately, but we block it with Love on Death, so you get the idea. Let's see if we can do it again. But generally speaking, this is sort of how you can smash through. Yeah, so, oh, by the way, if you want to fix that bug, I believe the way to fix that bug is because of super raids, is what people were saying. So if we go in here and we turn super raids off, it should hopefully fix it. So I think that's what's causing it. So pro tip right there. We go in and we try this again. So I actually did this without Mithrala as well. I did pretty much the same sort of team. Actually, we can leave it on auto. Make sure they target a Siphi though. And we have Hex on everyone, so hopefully this works this time. So she comes in and nukes. Again, we didn't quite kill that Siphi. That's a little bit unlucky on the damage rolls. And she can die here. I didn't die, but yeah, it's certainly close. We could actually, we could do this. She's going to do that, all this sort of stuff. Yeah, but you get the idea. This is the team that can absolutely smash through because we just do so much damage to them is basically what happens. We just do so much damage that we sort of get away with it. We can nuke through, and we sort of go through with most of our abilities reset for the follow-up waves. And Mithrala is actually amazing for it because she can protect you hugely with, yeah, just petrifying your enemies, stuff like that. Not so useful against Rotos because Siphi does completely cleanse the Rotos. But yeah, this sort of team, you do have to manual it just to make sure everything runs smoothly, right? Just to make sure it does go smoothly. But we're able to sort of get through all these different sorts of waves. I'll bring you on to the second wave as well, just so we can see it sort of up against wave 2. In case you don't believe me, we'll just mostly use our A1s here just to finish these dudes off. We will actually put a shield on because that's totally cool. She's so quick and her cooldowns are so short. Yeah, like right there, giving us some shielding is probably kind of worth it. But pretty nifty, pretty nice. Yeah, we'll do that. It's fine. So one thing you can actually do, if you do blow up this wave real fast, you can just use Lydia's, her A3, because there's one Siphi on the follow-up waves, which makes it a lot easier to do. But yeah, that gives you a rough idea. So this is like a really good Doom Tower team. Again, there's other flexible options. You could have a defensive-based team. This is like an aggressive Hex-based team and actually kills them pretty quick. And it just brings that explosive power of Hex. Let's see it against this wave here. So hopefully we have all of our stuff good to go. We can Hex them. There we go, which is great. We can give us increased speed. I can scratch my nose because it's itchy. And this is actually a perfect situation for some ally attacking against a Siphi to really blow her up. And it's that the turn meter of Arbiter plus Lanicus is what's giving me enough for her to then come in and boom, blow them up. And yeah, she's going to get killed, all that sort of stuff, and they're going to smack us. But then Arbiter comes in, picks them back up. He's actually petrified. And now without Siphi to support him, he's actually... Maybe we'll play through the whole thing. I don't know. We can block his move, so we don't need to worry about that. And yeah, it's just good stuff. In fact, we're going to give us increased attack so that she has it. Cool, extra turn. A bit of healing, more increased attack. So we've got super increased attack. And actually even the poisons here that she does are quite helpful. She's actually going to kill him right there. Lovely. This is where we go a bit slower. While he has that Petrify on, he's taking less damage. So let's actually just beat this whole floor for the sake of it now. I'm committed. Let's beat it or fail. Let's beat it or fail. We're probably going to fail because I didn't have Arbiter's thing off cooldown. That's not good. So maybe this is I'd say this is almost definitely a fail because she's going to be probably too quick. Maybe we've got enough turn meter. I don't think my Thea's going to be fast enough to cut in on Siphi. Yeah, and they get increased attack and she's probably going to die. Might as well increase our attack again. She actually goes into stealth, which is kind of useful. And I mean, it still hits hard. We're going to block her revive. Shielding is up. You know, we might be fine here, actually. We're just going to focus attacks in on Siphi. Try take her down. One more A1 from that's going to be fine. Yep, your stuff is denied. Unfortunately, she has bloody... Man, Siphi gives herself so many turns of block debuffs. It's unfortunate. My Arbiter is 300 attack, but Siphi's giving them an 80 resist aura, so we don't have enough to cut through. We're taunted. We'll come back around. So I think we might still win this one. It's not super clean, but I think we might still do it. She should have enough accuracy to debuff. There we go. We'll put the Hex back on. Every time Rotos takes a turn, because of Siphi passive, does get cleansed off, which is unfortunate. We get enough turn meter now. That would be great to cut in. She doesn't have her thing ready to go. Doesn't have Hex Reaper. That's okay. We can block Siphi's move now. So we should actually be pretty good at this point. There you go. Brimane Cyclics. Might get that. Yeah. Ally attack. And boom. There we go. We just beat, in my opinion, probably the hardest wave of... the hardest floor of Doom Tower Rotation 3. It wasn't super clean, but I thought it was kind of cool. You could see Mithrala at work protecting our team, putting those Petrifies out, using the Hex. Pretty nifty, right? Pretty nifty. So there you go. Yeah, there's another Petrify locking him down. Fantastic. Yeah, she just has such short cooldowns. She always lands her debuffs because she can build her with so much accuracy. She resists all their debuffs. So that was much slower. Excuse me, but we're still able to bust through. So there you go. Mithrala working in Doom Tower as well. Very good. So good across the board. I won't touch Hydra in this video. I'll do more stuff on Hydra in the future. However, I do think, is anyone actually in my clan using Mithrala? It does not look like it right now, but she is fantastic for Hydra. Now, this rotation of Hydra is very hard. You're not going to see her at her full potential in this rotation, but she's still very good. She's obviously amazing for keeping your team alive, brings so much protection for your team. The Hex to target Head of Mischief, so stay tuned for more of that soon, but she is an amazing champion for Hydra. Let me show you the team I'm thinking of running her in. I talked about this in a previous video. I'm thinking of a team maybe something like this, something a little bit like this. So we do have an overlap with Strengthen between, between Mithrala and Lydia, but that's okay. The idea is that we've got a speed aura with Mother Cybele, decreased speed from Mother Cybele, got block buffs from Umbral Enchantress. The increased defense that we're getting here is going to up her damage as well. We'll bring in some healing in that, decreased defense. I'm not sure if this team is going to work perfectly. This is my idea right now, but more testing is required. But she's certainly going to be amazing for Hydra, just for keeping you healthy, keeping you alive, and giving you a way to deal with mischief. Unfortunately, Head of Decay is kind of a pain. Nice thing she does for Head of Decay, though, is because she brings shielding. Head of Decay reduces your max HP whenever you heal. The shields that Mithrala brings and just the tankiness that she brings to your team does lower the amount of healing you need. I think she'll also, and therefore the amount Head of Decay decreases, she'll also be very good for Demon Lord, of course, but I don't think particularly relevant. I think by the time that you get her, you should really have a 1-key Ultra Nightmare team by then. Well, not 1-key Ultra Nightmare, but you should be beating Ultra Nightmare by then. We'll see if someone comes up with cool stuff there. Now, the last place I want to talk about her is the arena. The last place we want to look at is the arena. So we need to outspeed a team for it to work. So, okay, let's try, let's try this first. So this we might lose. Let's try like this first. So against the Hegemon, we'll see if she can cleanse our team. We might get lucky. We might just lose anyway. We might just lose with this team anyway. The idea with this team is actually very similar to what we saw right there. So here we go, yeah. So unfortunately, Arbiter does get locked, which is unfortunate. We'll try push her turn meter back a little bit. Mithrala comes in. Now, Mithrala can remove our debuffs and all of that. Now, we could, if we're lucky, get the extra turn with Lanicus. We did. That's a 50-50, guys. That's a 50-50. It says 25%, but there's an extra 25% from books. Now we can ally attack here, give us some turn meter. Hopefully, Thea won't hit him and get decreased attack. She didn't. And then we could actually put her into stealth just to protect her. And then she can slam. We didn't have Hex out there, so that was just a normal Thea hit. So it's actually not super strong, but it's still decent. And we actually were able to cut through that. So that was kind of cool. That was an idea of what Mithrala could do against a Hegemon. Now, as you can see, the issue is with the Arbiter setup here. This is why I'd say it's not super great. It's okay, but not super great. And obviously, you'd want an immunity set, preferably on Mithrala, in case he had a stun set. The issue is that because Arbiter is faster, that Mithrala can't cleanse them. So you'd want like an immunity Arbiter as well, potentially, to make it work. Or you'd want to run a different team, something like a Prince Kymar instead of Arbiter, and have Mithrala be your fastest. She cleanses, Kymar puts them to sleep, and then you're good, right? Then you're laughing. No stress, no worries, you're good to go. So it's just being clever with your team in terms of fighting Kymar. And yeah, you can see Thea smacks even without Hex, which is kind of funny. Let's see against this team. Now, we need to be faster for this to work. I want to show what happens when we're faster. We can see the full Hex nuke. We're not faster. This is bad. Cut in, please. Do not be speed tuned. It looks like they're speed tuned. Oh yeah, this is not looking too good. I mean, let's see if Mithrala can. Oh, they got another turn meter boost. We're super dead. Wow, they were not only were they faster, they were so much faster than me that their Arbiter got 2 turns before I got a single turn. That's kind of miserable. That's kind of miserable. Let me see. Like, which team looks kind of slow? Any of these teams look slow? I mean, this team's slow, obviously. I mean, level 100 with that thing and the platinum portrait, probably not platinum portrait. This team might be slow. He's only level 80. Bad team power. Let's give it a go. Give it a go. As you guys know, I just never use farm speed gear, so I'm not super quick. But here we go. So we get to go first, and now you get to see what happens when you go first. Now, one of the issues that you can run into, well, that was unlucky with the resist. Again, there's always that 3% chance. One issue you can run into is because her hex move is a hit. It's an attack. It can proc the mastery, which gives turn meter whenever you're crit. You know, it's like a 50% chance to gain turn meter when an ally is crit. That can be bad. It can let them sort of cut in and interrupt you, which is bad. Rotos is going to survive and get an extra turn because of Rotos passives, but it doesn't really matter. But here we can see, again, the idea is simply that if we can go first, that we can actually absolutely destroy them, nuke them down. And in fact, Thea, without any accuracy, is still going to blow them up and put true fears on as well with her passive, even without too much accuracy on some enemies. So that's sort of the gist of that. Let's try this team. Will we be faster? I don't know. Is team powers low? But speed doesn't really contribute to team power. Okay, we're slightly faster. So again, we can leave this full auto. I will click the Arbiter just to make sure Lanicus does ally attack on Arbiter. Probably a good thing. You can see the True Fears from Thea. That's pretty nice. And then Hex Reaper blows them up. I love that Hex Reaper with Thea right there. Did 44,000 on a non-crit due to the reaction set. So I mean, 44k is still a good hit with Thea. So that's the powerful thing about this sort of Hex nuke setup in the arena, is that it does so much damage that it can kind of blow them up. Now, probably it's easier to make a Trunda team work, but it can still work. Now, where she gets better, and I can show you the top teams, I don't have the champions to make the best teams possible. We look at this. So this is Boomer, obviously, Mad Ninja. He's coming in. What does he have? Sifi, Rotos, Mithrala, and Nekret. This is obviously your top tier sort of Mithrala team. So is she viable for Platinum Arena? Yeah, not only is she viable, she's one of the best champions in the game for it. What does she do? Well, we don't really care about Hex to enable a Hex nuker in this comp, because obviously there's no Hex nuker. What she's doing instead is she's providing increased defense consistently to this team, increased attack to this team as well, ups Rotos damage, ups Nekret damage, I think. He might be HP based, I don't actually know. Doesn't really matter he doesn't do much damage. He's just there for all the nonsense he does with his passives and his casted buffs and stuff. But Mithrala, she's just going to keep this team. It's really hard to kill Nekret. It's really hard to kill Rotos, to kill Sifi. And then Mithrala comes in. She's like, I'm going to keep cleansing you guys. I'm going to give you strengthen. I'm going to give you shields, increase your defense, all of this stuff. I'm going to be hexing the enemy team, which means when they hit us, they can be petrified. So they get buff stripped, buff blocked. They miss their turns. They freeze their cooldowns. It just makes it very hard to attack. That's the idea of this team. So I think looking through it consistently, we're going to see here with Sifi and Rotos. Here we go again. Sifi, Rotos, and an Ursaga. This is their most common combo. Here we go. She's actually in with a different team. Nekret protecting a Trunda, Duchess, and Mithrala, right? That's another one. Here we go again with the Duchess, Nekret. So Nekret, obviously, super good. It's just going to be so hard to kill this team. You got to deal with a Stone Skin Nekret. You got to deal with a Mithrala that can keep petrifying your team when you attack. You're going to keep protecting that the Sifi or the Duchess, whoever it is, the Nekret. She's going to keep cleansing them, protecting them. Makes it very hard to play around, for sure. Very, very difficult. Any other teams with Mithrala in there? Here's another one. Kaimar with Sifi Rotos. Kind of expected. But yeah, you're going to see her cropping up more and more and more. Here she is with a Duchess, a Sifi. And this team's probably not as good, but I guess Leorius can stay alive with his passive. But yeah, she is obviously amazing, and it's really hard to debuff her, control her. This one's kind of interesting. Yeah, maybe a bit more of a stall team. I guess she ups Valkyrie's damage as well, which is kind of cool, but yeah, it's interesting. There you go. I think she's badass, right? Badass. Yeah, pretty much. I'd say probably the best sort of team you can put her in is what Boomer has here. This looks just disgusting. Sifi, Rotos, already disgusting. Nekret protecting Rotos, and then the Mithrala as well. Pretty gross. So she's pretty amazing yeah, pretty amazing for the arena, even in those tanky teams as well. Put her into a tankier team, not just a speed team, and she's going to work really, really well there. Really, really well. So Platinum Arena viable. And guys, that is Mithrala. This has already been super long, so sorry about that. If you guys want to see more Mithrala stuff, let me know. I'm obviously going to return and do more Hex compositions, focusing not just on Mithrala, but on the other champions as well. We obviously saw quite a lot of Thea here today. But yeah, Mithrala, she's incredible. Incredible. Can be really good in some dungeon teams. Amazing for Doom Tower. Top tier for Arena. Top tier for Hydra. Yeah, she is a fantastic champion. So good. Does so much to keep your team alive. Brings Hex. Actually makes Hex a good debuff because she's such a good champion. And her passive is insane with it. So yeah, Mithrala. She's amazing. I hope you enjoyed today's video, guys. Sorry it was a bit long. But yeah, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.